On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, we're going to dive into the NBA draft prospect profile and projection for Jarace Walker. Is he the perfect prospect for the Oklahoma City Thunder? And what is his biggest strengths and weaknesses? And can he fit alongside Chet Holmgren? Plus, what's his range in the draft, all coming up.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com. Rylan Styles, you can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, lothunderpod@gmail.com. You can even text the show now. So whenever you go to subtext, you can go text the show and get behind-the-scenes access, plus mailbag questions as well. On today's show, we're going to have another NBA draft profile and projection. This time, it's going to dive into Jarace Walker. Is he the perfect fit for the Oklahoma City Thunder? How does he fit next to Chet Holmgren? And what is his biggest strength and weakness? And where does he project to go in this draft? If you're new, we've done this a few years now. We're going to give you an overview on what Jarace Walker is, his stats, and then dive into the strengths and the weaknesses of his game, talk about what the synergy numbers say, look at where he's available in the draft in terms of mock drafts and big boards, and then give you how he impacts the Thunder if they were to select him, plus his ceiling and floor as a player. And we're going to try to do some NBA comps, but obviously that's a very hard thing to do and things that typically end up being very, very wrong. But we're still going to give it a try because why not? We're here for you every single day. So subscribe for free across all podcasting platforms so you never miss an episode, and go there right now to YouTube to subscribe as well. Let's dive in. Walker is 6'8", 240 with a 7'2" wingspan. He's 19.8 years old, out of Houston. A very switchable defender that has a great feel for the game and off-ball ability. I think that Jarace Walker is the perfect fit for Oklahoma City, and I would love to see the stars aligned where he is a member of the Thunder when this process is all said and done. At Houston, he averaged 11 points, 6 rebounds, nearly 2 assists, a steal, and a block per game over there while leading Houston to a very successful season in college basketball. The biggest strength of his game, I think you can go a lot of different routes, but let's start with his frame. He has the perfect size to be placed on this Thunder team. He plays every bit as big, if not bigger, than that 6'8", 7'2" wingspan, 240-pound frame. He is amazing at playing big in these moments and using his body. He plays like a middle linebacker on the floor. He is a really good defender, that I think can defend on the perimeter better than he gets credit for, because he defends fairly well in isolation out there on an island and fits right into this switch-happy NBA and the switching concepts OKC runs. You're not going to be able to switch him off the floor, not even in the NBA. He's also versatile, which is a prerequisite to play for OKC. He can play 3 through 5. He can play in those wacky small ball 5 lineups. He can play the 4, I think, next to Chet Holmgren. He can even play, up and play or down and play small forward. He is a great rebounder that has a nose for the ball and understanding of where it's going to come off, but also an aggressive style of rebounder, willing to mix it up, willing to do what it takes to come away with the offensive board and put it back up, willing to do what it takes to get the defensive board to end the possession. And when you hear Sam Presti talk about them needing that nasty, needing more of an aggressive play, and he was more so meaning that from the internal players on the current roster. But if you want to use that and say that they need that overall, it will be Walker who can provide some of that. He would fit right into a player who can develop more nasty and develop more aggression as you put him in the NBA. he can be yet another player that rises the intensity and the energy level. We talk a lot about how Kendrick Williams does that, how Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara does that, how Jalen Williams out of Arkansas does that. We talk a lot about how Lou Dort does that. Like, these players on this Thunder roster are built to bring the energy, bring the intensity, and help you as their teammate get up to that level as well, night in and night out of an 82-game season. So adding another player that will be willing to put the hard hat on every single day will be great for this team. And then you look past that, and he brings an elite pick and roll partner for SGA, Josh Giddey, and Jalen Williams. He would be brilliant in the dunker spot of an offense, especially sitting down there as you have some spacing around SGA at the perimeter and you have SGA attacking downhill at the rim and can just dump it off to Jarace Walker. Like, thinking about that possibility is just incredible for Oklahoma City. He is insanely good in transition, which is, again, a requirement to play in Oklahoma City. He was the third in the league in pace last year. He can jump passing lanes to spark the offense with his deflections and steals. And even if you don't come away with the possession and the ball, the ability to disrupt the offense and give time for himself and others to recover on the defensive end cannot be undersold. Because of his frame and decisiveness when cutting, he is a problem. When rolling to the rim, running to the rim, cutting to the rim, he is a problem, and there will be a lot of business decisions made even at the NBA level whenever he gets that full head of steam going to the rack. And with all this being said, he has a great feel for the game. Like, he can keep an offense in rhythm. He can also make incredible whip passes down the floor and across the floor to help create shots and help create offense. And when the ball is placed in his hand, he doesn't look like Bambi out there. Like, he can dribble a little bit. Now, you don't want him being your number one creator with the ball in his hand, obviously, but the Thunder wouldn't ask him to do that. He would be down to the fourth, fifth, sixth creator on the team with the ball in his hand, to where he can still do it, but he's not being relied on it, and so it even looks better in that sense. And his three-point shot, I think, is a strength of his. And it's a double-edged sword, which we'll talk about the flip side of it coming up. But right now, let's talk about the pros of it. The big feather in his cap is that he shot 34% from three in college with a really good shooting stroke. And that shows he has upside. And the Thunder have Chip England, the best shooting coach in the NBA, who you would love to marry with Jarace Walker, who has that potential to be a really good three-point shooter, or at least, an above-average three-point shooter, along with everything else that he gives you. Jarace Walker would instantly complement and fit what OKC is trying to build, while also plugging a lot of their holes. He's really good at getting to the glass and getting rebounds. He's really good at ending possessions on the defensive end. He also passes the eye test in terms of the feel for the game requirement. He's also great in transition. He does everything really well that you want to see in Oklahoma City. And for his weaknesses, let's talk about that double-edged sword about his shot. His free throw percentage is under 70%, and typically you look at that 70% mark and you use that to determine if they're going to translate or project to be a good three-point shooter. However, even though he doesn't check that box, the form looking good and the shot going in, at a 34% clip in college, plus with the knowledge of who you have on your coaching staff, I think lessens this concern for Walker. With that playmaking and passing we talked about, he does get a little bit overzealous as a playmaker at times, with his handle going into the trees, with his passes trying to fit it into that ever so small window. But I would wonder if this weakness also gets scratched off with his role changing and the defense changing around him. Because I think that a lot of these weaknesses come from him being the number one option. And there's not going to be many instances where he is that number one option at the NBA level. For example, he did settle for a few mid-range shots, a few too many mid-range shots at the college ranks. But how much of that is because it's hard to relentlessly dive into the paint when the whole defense is focusing on you and surrounding you and trying to fluster you and trying to take you out of the game. Whereas at the NBA level, things open up more and it becomes easier to just go one-on-one to the rim instead of knowing that you're going to just be hammering your head into a wall over and over again. And then the biggest weakness, I think, for his game, and one of the only things that I think would be a concern, is that I don't love him as an on-ball creator. And if you can force the ball out of other people's hands and put it in his hands as an on-ball creator instead of just a guy that is a connector, then you might run into a few issues. But again, that shouldn't be his role in the NBA, and that's not how he projects to be used in the NBA. Coming up, let's talk about his synergy stats. Let's talk about where he's available, his ceiling and floor NBA comp, and how he fits with the Oklahoma City Thunder. But first, I want to tell you right now about our good friends over at eBay Motors, folks. eBay Motors is great, and you're going to want to check them out today, because we all know that to win a championship, it takes the perfect build. It takes the perfect roster construction, the perfect parts to win a championship. It's the same way when working on cars, folks. So check them out today at eBay Motors, because they have those perfect parts that fit just right every single time for you. You go to eBay Motors right now, and you're going to get the guaranteed fit. Just be sure that every part that you need fits right the first time around. You're going to go to add my ride to your garage, and then you're going to look for the green check that matches with your car and the part, and then it will fit, or your money back guaranteed. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. And when you shop on eBay Motors, you will have over 122 million parts to choose from. You'll be back in the game in no time. And after all, it's so easy to bring home a win when you are guaranteed the right parts with the right fit at the right prices. And that's what ebaymotors.com does. Let's ride. eBay Motors guaranteed fit, only available in U.S. customers, eligible items only, and exclusions apply. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. We're going to have more of these NBA draft profile and projections all throughout the week and all throughout the next few weeks and months as we lead up to the NBA draft. We're also going to do Mailbag Monday on Monday, so make sure you drop any questions that you have on Twitter at Ryland_Styles in the comment section on YouTube, or anywhere else that you can contact the show. So make sure you do that and get your questions in and get your questions heard for Locked On Thunder Mailbag Monday. Tomorrow we'll be doing another podcast and projection profile on Taylor Hendricks. And you can leave below in the comments also who you want to hear about next in this series. Now let's talk the synergy numbers on Jarace Walker. He is excellent in transition offensively. He is good in the half court and against man defense offensively. In the 73rd percentile on cuts, 84th percentile at the rim, and 90th percentile on hook shots. Offensively, I think he fits extremely well. Defensively, I think he fits extraordinarily well. 89th percentile defensively overall, which grades out as excellent. 95th percentile with less than 4 seconds on the clock. 89th percentile in man defense. 83rd percentile in isolation. In isolation, Walker is allowing 0.519 points per possession, while defending the pick and roll very well. In the 80th percentile defending post-ups, and allows less than a point per possession at the rim. When you add him into the Thunder defensive construct, where you have SGA, who grades out as an excellent defender. You have Lou Dort, who keeps opposing coaches up at night. You have Chet Holmgren coming back, who is one of the best rim-protecting prospects that we've seen, and can be someone who anchors the defense and takes stuff away on the help side. And then you insert Jarace Walker into that, along with J-Dub, who even as a rookie graded out as an average defender, which is very hard to do for a rookie, and he has the length and the size to continue to grow on that end and continue to disrupt NBA offenses. It will become increasingly hard to score on this team. And all of those guys are able to play the passing lanes and get deflections. All of those guys are able to get steals and to get blocks and to get rebounds and to turn defense into offense. And all of those guys are excellent in transition offensively. So the third best team in pace will gain another player who thrives in that category. And you can turn that defense into offense, and you can see quickly how the Thunder will be able to integrate Walker with their current group. Like, this, to me, is the perfect prospect for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Where is he going to be available at? The Ringer has him at 7. ESPN has him at 5. The Athletic has him at 8. Bleacher Report has him at 5. CBS has him at 9. NBC has him at 6. DraftNet has him at 13. Tankathon at 7. My big board, he's at 7. And then Mavs Draft's big board, you can go to and find it at mavsdraft.com. And also he joins the show every week to talk NBA draft. His big board has Walker at 7 as well. I think that the ceiling for Jarace Walker is this highly impactful starter who is a focal point for why teams win basketball games, but never really gets like the all-star or superstar conversation. But everyone understands this is the reason why this team wins. Like, he is a very important reason for why this team is successful. And I think that he'll get a lot of consideration for Defensive Player of the Year awards over his career from smart guys that watch, and he'll be the outsider pick for Defensive Player of the Year. Like, I know so-and-so is the clear-cut favorite, but watch out for what Walker's doing down in X city in the NBA. He's playing really good in that consideration-wise. Like, I think that is going to be what you see from him in the NBA. Now, the floor of what he is in the NBA, I think, is a really good off-speed pitch. Like, the floor would be he's a really good player to have on your roster for change of pace looks, because he can play that small ball 5. He can go play the 3, and you can throw out a jumbo lineup if you need to. He can play the 4, where I think he's more comfortably projected at the NBA level, but he just changes what you ordinarily do. And so for that 10, 12-minute spurt per game that you throw him out there, it keeps the opposition on their heels, and it kind of changes what they're expecting from you, and you're able to exploit a mismatch. That's what I think the floor is for him, and the ceiling is just a highly, highly, highly impactful player. I hate NBA comps. I'm not good at them. I don't think many people are good at them, but the reason why I think is that every player is just an individual. Like, it's hard to kind of go one-to-one, and too often we hear a player comp and just think, okay, they're going to be exactly that player, when that's not exactly what player comp should be about. So my admittedly bad attempt at an NBA player comp would be like a smaller version of what Jaren Jackson Jr. provides, and he hopefully will not foul as much as Jaren Jackson Jr. does in Memphis, but a smaller version of what Triple J is. And Triple J is 6'10", with that wingspan, with what he can do at scoring at all 3 levels and playing defensively at the Defensive Player of the Year level. Walker's only 6'8", but he does have a 7'2" wingspan, and is able to play bigger than he is. So I think that would be a mold in which you can take Walker's game and say just a brief little synopsis of what he could be, or what you should expect from him in terms of level of play or style of play stylistically. So I think that when you look at Walker as a prospect, it's easy to see why it's exciting. Now, the range, I think, is pretty well determined. I'd be shocked if he falls out of the top 10, but draft night surprises do always happen. But he is the best player once you get past the all-star potential players, in my opinion. And that's why he's down there at 7 on my board. You can make the argument that he should be even higher than that, in the sense of like, where's your cutoff for superstar level players? So for me, Victor and Scoot are 1 and 2. They could be superstar to all-star level. Brandon Miller, I think, could be an all-star in this league. I love what Amen Thompson can be in this league. And then you have my personal favorite, who's been my favorite throughout this whole draft process, is Cam Whitmore. I have him above Walker at 6. You can make the argument that Walker should be 6 is where. I'm sorry, I forgot that I got to subtract 1. So on my big board, I have a line of like name, position, country, or whatever. So actually, Walker is 6 for me, not 7. Just to clear that up, as I was saying it out loud. Luckily, I did this saying it out loud. But Walker is 6, and you can make the argument that he should be 5 for me on my big board. So like, I think that once you get past the names of guys that like could be an all-star potential player, Walker is clearly the best option there. And I think that when you look at him as an elite switchable defender that just fits this Thunder mold, there's a reason why, if he does, feature any sort of draft day blunder of like, why is he falling? Why is he getting closer and closer to 12? He would be a guy that I think could warrant a trade up if he's not there at 12, because of how seamlessly it appears that he fits on this Thunder team. And again, we're all guessing. No one knows for sure who fits, who doesn't, who the Thunder are looking at themselves. But like just from the outside looking in, having watched the Thunder play all these games, having watched Jarace Walker play, it really looks like he can be a seamless fit to what the Thunder are building. And speaking of that, let's talk about what his future role is for OKC, what the roster impact would be for drafting him in Oklahoma City, what his rotational fit is, and why the Thunder should and why the Thunder shouldn't take him, all coming up. But first, what I'd say right now, but our good friends over at Ibotta, folks. Ibotta is there for you because we all know that you're already grocery shopping, you're already school supply shopping, you're already getting stuff for yourself. So why not, while doing all of that, get cash back with Ibotta? So go right now and go to Ibotta and you can earn cash back on every shopping trip. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items over produce, personal care, pantry goods, whatever you need. You can go right now and either link your loyalty account rewards or upload your receipt after each shopping trip and you get cash back. It's that easy. The average Ibotta user earns $120 per year in real cash back that can cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, or it can use that cash to buy a flight that you've been eyeing, or get that game you've been dying to go to tickets to, go on a fancy dinner, whatever you want to do. You can get cash back with Ibotta. A typical basket of groceries is over $50 more expensive at the end of 2022 than it was at the beginning of the year due to inflation. So make sure that you're going there and earning some cash back on Ibotta. Ibotta gives you real cash back, not points. Other apps just give you these points that don't amount to anything. With Ibotta, you get real cash back, and the cash back in your bank account is real. It's not some gift card or anything like that. It's real cash back into your bank account. You can earn cash back with hundreds of online brands and realtors too whenever you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Go right now to Ibotta. It's offering our listeners $5 for just using Ibotta using the code LOCKED. When you register, use the code LOCKED when you register at Ibotta. You get just a flat $5 just for trying it out on the App Store or Google Play Store. That is the free Ibotta app. It's Ibotta, Ibotta, in the Google Play Store, App Store using code LOCKED. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On NBA podcast for the national perspective on all of basketball. And tomorrow, we're going to be doing the Taylor Hendricks player profile and projection for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And next week, we're doing your mailbag questions. We're talking Richard Stamen again. We're going to have more draft profile and projections. We're going to have my big board. We're going to have everything out there next week. So make sure that you stay tuned for that, all coming up. But for right now, let's talk more about Walker, who I think is the perfect fit next to Chet Holmgren. I think that a lineup of, seeing SGA, Josh Giddey, Jalen Williams, Jarace Walker, Chet Holmgren would be a phenomenal lineup eventually to see that kind of play out in certain minutes. And I think that the lineup data on that group, whenever it is that they share the floor, if they were to share the floor, would be tantalizing for the fan base. He would be just an awesome pairing for Chet because of his switchability, because of Chet's ability to roam and help defensively and protect the rim. It would just be very fun to see what Mark could come up with. You've got to remember, Mark had this team playing at a top 12 in the league, defensive pace for some of each season he's been here, including years where the roster was lackluster, to say the least. It was a 20-win roster. So to continue to give him more tools to work with in his toolbox, which just I can't imagine what it will look like when that does come to fruition. What is his rotational fit? I think that he would be a guy that comes off the bench next year in the same way that James Harden came off the bench, and I don't say that to compare the players. I'm saying that to compare the situations. Like, yes, Lou Dort's going to start next year. J-Dub's going to start next year. Chet's going to start next year. Giddey's going to start next year. Shea's going to start next year. But I think that there's going to be certain matchups where if you have Jarace Walker on the team, he's going to close the game next year. In certain matchups, not every matchup, not every game. He's not going to, he's not going to hear his name called in the PA system as a starter every game or anything like that. But there's going to be certain matchups where he plays more than in other matchups because I think that he's that good of a matchup-based problem for other teams, especially in the defensive end and what he can provide to you offensively. But I think ultimately he comes off the bench next year if he were to be a player for the Thunder. His roster impact long term. Look, I like Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. You know that I like Jeremiah Robinson-Earl if you listen to this podcast, but I don't see how he gets minutes if you draft Jarace Walker. If you're having to run through and cycle through the 4 or 5 position, which is the only places where Jeremiah Robinson-Earl can play, and you're going to have 4 or 5 minutes to Chet, you're going to have 4 or 5 minutes to Walker, you're going to have 4 or 5 minutes to Dub, you're going to have 4 or 5 minutes to Kenny Hustle, you're going to have 4 or 5 minutes to, if you keep Poku around, Jay Will needs minutes as well after the season that we've seen him play. Like, you're already up to 6 names right there before we've even considered Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, and at that 4 or 5 position, Wiggins is going to play that 4 or 5 position some. Like, you're going to see too many guys that need minutes at those 2 specific positions, which are the only positions that he can play. And so I just don't see a world in which he gets a ton of minutes if this were to happen. And I think that that's the biggest looming roster impact for Oklahoma City if this move was to be made. Why the Thunder should take Jarace Walker is that, as I've been saying, I think he's the perfect fit. I think that you have Chip England to develop his shot. That already looks good. I think that you have the defensive scheme to let him thrive and also, in turn, let you be one of the best defenses in the entire league. And he checks that feel for the game box to keep you in rhythm offensively and to not stop what you want to do with everybody being a playmaker and everybody being able to make decisions. And then I think that he complements Chet Holmgren very, very well, and it's going to be a very hard thing to do. Like, moving forward, the biggest question, I think, for this Thunder roster and rebuild is going to be, how do you manage to pair somebody with Chet Holmgren? Because it's, you don't need to find that partner right now. Don't even need to find that partner next year, but eventually you're going to have to find that partner. And we've seen in Minnesota how hard it is to partner up the big man position. And I think that Jarace Walker can do that very well and complement Chet very well and fit next to him very well. Why the Thunder should not take Jarace Walker? Obviously, if they don't think that he's a fit next to Chet Holmgren, that'll be the biggest red flag. I will say that, a area is either he's not in their range, or another key factor this is they know more about like development and everything than I do, clearly, duh. And so since he doesn't have that free throw percentage that you look for to project high improvement at the 3-point line at the NBA level, since he doesn't have that, and his shot already looks good, I would wonder what Chip England could do. The skepticism in you would wonder, well, then how do you, if it's already looking good, and it's only going in at a 34% clip, and there's no other measurements to show you that it should go up in terms of statistics, then what do you change about him? Now, they would know that answer. They would know the answer of if you can change something, if you can't change something, if you believe in it or don't believe it, way more than I do. But I believe in it because it looks good. Well, what if it just always looks good and never goes in at a higher clip than 34%? Can you live with that? Can you stomach that as you build this roster out and as you select him in the top 12? That's an answer that they're going to have to decide between now and then. But I think ultimately the Thunder would have to trade up for him, and I think ultimately it'd be worth it. I think that he would be one of the perfect fits for Oklahoma City in this draft, and I think that he would be somebody that gets this fan base extremely excited. Even if on draft day people didn't understand the move or looked at it and said, well, you traded X amount of first-round picks, whatever, that first Summer League game, you'd understand it. You'd understand it because he is what a lot of fans have been clamoring for in the comment section for the entire season. The type of player that comment sections have been clamoring for the entire season. Let me know what you think. Is Jarace Walker a perfect fit for Oklahoma City? Am I way off base here? Let me know in the comment section on YouTube, on Twitter at Ryland_Styles, and we will continue our draft profile and projection series tomorrow with Taylor Hendricks. That's right. It's Locked On Thunder, your team every single day. Subscribe across all podcasting platforms. Even in the offseason, we're here for you every single day. And until tomorrow, be good and be good to one another.